Parliament, members of the Council, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding for the worship of the Mayor, Councillor Ronald Woodley. Please be seated.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending this event. My name is Councillor Matt Thames, and I'll be chairing this meeting. I will begin today's proceedings by lighting the Holocaust candle. This is one of 70 candles distributed in 2015 across the UK to commemorate 70 years since the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau on 27th of January 1945. We light this candle every year at this time. Thank you all for coming to support this event, which keeps alive the memories of those who have suffered atrocities. In the world in which we live, there continue to be conflict and unrest. It is particularly important that today we can reflect upon Holocaust Memorial Day and the desire to learn from the previous atrocities across the world. This year marks 80 years since the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, which adds an additional layer of importance and solemnity to today's service. As we join in prayers and listen to first-hand accounts, I ask you all to remember the horrors that played out in your own way, and remember where hatred led humanity within living memory. I now call upon Mayor's Chaplain, Reverend Frank Smith, to lead us in prayer.
Almighty and loving God, we assemble here with heavy hearts, remembering the 6 million Jewish souls murdered during the Holocaust. In the horror of history, when so many groups were targeted because of their identity, and in genocides which followed, we recognise destructive prejudices that drive people apart. Forgive us when we allow fear, negativity and hatred of others to have space in any lives, simply because they are different from us. In the light of God, we see everyone as equally precious, manifestations of the divine, and can know the courage to face the darkness. Through our prayers and actions, help us to stand together with those who are suffering, so that light may banish all darkness, love will prevail over hate, and good will triumph over evil. Amen.
I'm now pleased to introduce Rabbi Warnell from the Southend-on-Sea District Reformed Synagogue to reflect on the theme for 2025 for a better future.
This year's Holocaust Memorial Day marks the 80th anniversary of what is known as the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest Nazi concentration camp complex. I always felt that the liberation of what happened after 1.5 million were killed there was slightly not quite the right title. It is also the 30th anniversary of the genocide in Bosnia. And on Holocaust Memorial Day, I believe it's important that we remember the other genocides that have occurred since 1945, when we all said at the end, never again. 80 years on from the liberation of that concentration and extermination camp, anti-Semitism has increased significantly here in the UK and globally. Islamophobia has also increased notably, and we saw this most visibly after the Southport stabbings and subsequent riots last summer. Many communities here in the United Kingdom are feeling vulnerable, with hostility and suspicion of others rising. We hope that Holocaust Memorial Day 2025 will be an opportunity for people to come together, learn both from and about the past, and take actions to make a better future for all. There are many things we can all do to create a better future. We can speak up against Holocaust and genocide denial and distortion. We can challenge prejudice. We can encourage others to learn about the Holocaust and more recent genocides. We can learn both from and about the Holocaust and these other more recent genocides, be it Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia, Darfur, and others that are bordering on genocide. All genocides, whilst racism and hatred do not always lead to genocide, all genocides begin with insidious stages, including propaganda, othering, and dehumanization. It was Professor Gregory Stanton who developed an academic model outlining the 10 stages of genocide, demonstrating that genocide is a process that develops in stages that are predictable, but not inevitable. At each stage, preventive measures can stop it. Learning about the Holocaust and the other genocides can help us all to identify warning signs in the world around us. The Holocaust was the attempt by the Nazis and their collaborators to destroy all Jewish people in Europe. It took place across 22 different countries, with the active participation of some of the citizens of those countries, building upon centuries of anti-Semitism. Persecution of Jewish people began as soon as the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933. Classification, dividing people into us and them, followed by the Nuremberg laws, which discriminated against Jews, stripping them of their German citizenship. They were forced to wear yellow stars, a visual manifestation of the hatred which escalated to dehumanization, polarization, and outright persecution. Ultimately, it led to the extermination of 6 million Jewish people. This Holocaust Memorial Day, we all have an opportunity to take action for a better future. A better future where people are not suffering prejudice or persecution because of their faith, ethnicity, or any other characteristic. 80 years after the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, we must become the generation who carry forward the legacy of the witnesses. Remember those who were murdered and challenge those who distort or deny the past, or who discriminate and persecute today. We must all mark Holocaust Memorial Day 2025 and commit to making a better future for us all. I believe we all have a responsibility to do this, for us, for our children and grandchildren, all future generations, and our world.
Thank you, Rabbi El. I will now hand over to Rabbi Hyman from Southend-on-Sea Hebrew Congregation to introduce our speaker, Mr Paul Sved, BEM.
Worshipful Mayor, councillors, our honoured survivor, Paul Sved, BEM, distinguished guests, friends all. We gather here today on Holocaust Memorial Day with heavy hearts to remember, reflect and recommit ourselves to the vow of never again. It is a day where we stand united against the atrocities of the past, and together we honour the memory of 6 million Jews and countless others who perished in the Holocaust. We also remember today victims of other genocide, Bosnia, Cambodia, Darfur and Rwanda. It is also a day of paying our respect to the survivors who witnessed the unimaginable. In this solemn ceremony, we are privileged to have with us today one sick survivor, a beacon of resilience and hope, Mr. Paul Sved, BEM. Mr. Sved's story is not just a testament to the indomitable human spirit, but also a crucial reminder of the dangers of hatred, bigotry, and intolerance. Paul Sved was born in Budapest, Hungary in 1938, into a Jewish family, like many others, would soon face the horrors orchestrated by the Nazi regime. His father passed away in 1942 before the Nazi occupation, which took place on the 19th of March 1944. As a tender child of 6 years old, Paul and his mother were forced into hiding under the constant fear of deportation to the death camps. He witnessed horrific events which left him with an indelible memory of which he will share today. Paul settled in England in 1957 after the Hungarian Revolution. In his more recent years, Paul started to share his story with his grandchildren's school, and through the Holocaust Educational Trust, he has addressed numerous pupils across the country. Paul has dedicated an enormous amount of time and energy into sharing this story, thus playing his part in educating the future generation about the Holocaust, so that lessons of history are neither forgotten nor repeated. His work with various Holocaust education organizations has been instrumental in fostering understanding, tolerance, and empathy among young people. 2 years ago, he addressed over 200 school students gathered from across the counties of Essex, Suffolk, and Kent for a Dora Love Prize event. The Dora Love Prize is named after the Holocaust survivor and educator Dora Rabinovich Love, who passed away in 2011. This organization continues her work. This is an example of Paul's effort in sharing his story with the younger generation, which is important for building a better future for humanity, the theme of this year's HMD. In recognition of his tireless efforts and unwavering dedication, Paul Sved was awarded the British Empire Medal in 2021. This honour reflects not only his personal courage and resilience, but also his profound impact on Holocaust education and remembrance. In the current climate, we experience a sharp rise in anti-Semitism. We are witnessing again the prejudices of old, magnified by the use of social media to promote hatred and prejudice through false and distorted news. Today, as we listen to Mr. Sved, let us open our hearts and minds to his word. Let us be reminded that the stories of survivors are not just historical accounts, but powerful calls to action. They urge us to combat prejudice in all its forms, to stand up against true injustice, and to ensure that the darkness of the Holocaust is never allowed to overshadow our world again. Mr. Sved, present here today, is a living testament to the power of memory and the importance of bearing witness. It's a poignant reminder that we must all play our part in safeguarding the future from the atrocities of the past. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor to introduce you to a man of remarkable courage and wisdom, Holocaust survivor, Paul Sved, B.E.M. Thank you.
Worshipful Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, indeed, I was born in 1938, and I would like to just stress at the very outset that as a 6-year-old living through 1944, early 1945, it is a memory of really discomfort and suffering, but not fright, not fearfulness, because my mother, on whom I had depended upon for living really, did not tell me or explain to me what was already well known in Budapest at the time, that thousands, tens of thousands, as you will hear later, were in fact taken to Auschwitz and executed. and as indeed a lower middle class Jew, as we were in Budapest, we were in danger of that. But I never knew what could have happened. I could only describe to you people the suffering and the discomfort that was our lot. I put up the first picture very quickly as a quick reminder of Hungary. In 1944, is a little red blob in the middle of your picture. You can imagine summer 1944, the Allied forces coming in past D-Day from your left, and of course the Red Army on your right. Hungary squeezed in the middle, the only friend that Germany has got left, apart from Italy, with its far, far right-wing government, Nazi-supporting government ruling Hungary at that time. Now, I would like to show you next a picture of my mother and myself. But first of all, there is a quick picture of Budapest as a reminder of what a place looks like. It's a very beautiful city with the Danube in the middle, beautiful bridges. On the right-hand side is the administrative center of Pest. On the left is the more hilly and more green part of Buda. And I would like to draw your attention to the island in the middle at the front, at the top rather, called Margaret Island, which will take a small part in the story that I'm going to tell you about. Now, if you can continue to the next picture, please. There is myself and my mother. Really, it's a picture about the time that I was 6, 7. Maybe I was taken when I was about, maybe I was 8, and my mother. And the next picture, please. I show you this picture because of my uncle on the right-hand side of the picture, who was very much the supporter and help for us in the events that I'm going to describe to you, because he was very much a man of action, and as my father had died in 1943, as the rabbi reminded you, she depended very much on my uncle's help and support and advice. Now, the first thing I remember living next door to the synagogue in Budapest is the fact that I was excluded from nursery school across the road. My mother didn't say to me why I was excluded. Later on, I realized I was excluded because I was Jewish. So I was howling on our balcony, telling my mother, look, there's my friend, they are going, and the school is still open. You can't go. You'll have to stay at home. You are not allowed. I didn't understand, of course, why. The next piece of remembrance, if you could look at the next picture, please, is that we were all required by the government of Hungary to wear the yellow star, which my parents, my mother, had to buy with her own money. She, as a matter of principle, decided not to spend money on one, but made one with a little piece of yellow fabric she had. I considered that to be some kind of an emblem, and I wore it with great pride. One more piece of remembrance at that time is that we weren't allowed to travel on the tram and public transport except on certain days, and then only on the entrance part of the trams. Why? I didn't know. The next piece of remembrance is that our 5-story block of apartments where we lived was declared a Yellow Star house, so that it became part of the ghetto of Budapest. And with that, lots and lots of other Jews were crowding into our 3-room flat to stay and to sleep on the floor. Why? Why my bedroom, which used to be my own, suddenly had another elderly couple sleeping in it, I had no idea. But my mother, for some money, obtained false documents to protect me and herself. The documents was a new birth certificate which declared that I was a Roman Catholic. My name wasn't Paul Sved. I was called to be called Amon Resher. And my mother also, somebody else. I had to learn new birthdays, new details from me and from my mother, and what is more, I had to learn, and I don't know why, Roman Catholic prayers, Our Father who art in heaven, in Hungarian. Had to learn that in Hungarian, was drilled into me. Also, Hail Mary, and I knew these prayers in Hungarian to recite it to now. Üdvözlégy Mária, marasztalj teljes az Úrban te veled, áldott vagy az asszonyok között, and so on and so on. I could rattle them off because my mother drilled it into me, and I haven't said that until recently for dozens of years. But what I had for dinner last night, I'm not quite sure. Armed with these documents, my mother decided that she couldn't stand the ghetto, and we were going to go to another part of Budapest, to the Catholic part, because Hungary is chiefly Roman Catholic, and rent an apartment with our false identity, which we did. Now, the 3rd days into our existence outside the ghetto, my mother decided to take me shopping. We are now talking about the early summer of 1944. So I'm putting my coat on, I suddenly started to say, "Oh, Mom, where is the yellow star? Where is the yellow star from my coat?" I didn't quite finish the sentence. 40-year-old boy, the landlady's son, looks at me from a distance, a face that I will not forget. Hatred, 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 yelling at his mother, "Mother, get them out! They must be Jewish, get them out of here!" What is he talking about? Out. Now, as a 6-year-old, pictures carry me through, and for the rest of the time that I have talked to you, I would just leave you with 3 or 4 pictures as a 6-year-old that I had remembered. And indeed, this chap, with his hatred in his eye, "Get them out of here, they don't belong here," is the first picture that got left with me. We had to go back to the ghetto, and indeed, soon after, my uncle decided that it is not safe to stay in Budapest, and transported us to a little village south of Budapest, about 20 miles south, into a country, to a farm. Again, why, I don't know. The only thing I remember about the summer of 1944 in the country is that I remembered bomber jets, tiny, tiny dots up in the sky, 40, 50 in a group, going, American jets they were, not jets of course, American aircraft that they were going to bomb Budapest. Thankfully, they were not interested in bombing our village. Next step, again, I don't remember why, my uncle appeared, said, "This place is not safe anymore," and got us back to Budapest. Now we are in the autumn of 1944, And that is a period that I don't like remembering, because we were down in a sub-basement of an apartment block, not too far from our own home, but in another apartment block, in the sub-basement where some 12, 13 Jews were hidden, including my mother and me, by some do-gooders who decided that it would be safe down there. Now, this place was so dark and so quiet that we weren't allowed to speak at all, and we was so pitch dark we were not allowed to light even a candle. That all I remember is that I couldn't tell whether my eyes were open or closed. Couldn't tell which was dark, and it was pitch dark. Food was lowered once a day, and indeed remains taken out once a day. I was howling. I was howling a lot, I'm ashamed to say. I can't stand it here, I'm snivelling. My uncle came up again and said, okay, find somewhere else. We were sneaked out from that basement flat and taken by my uncle to the famous glass house of Budapest. The glass house of Budapest was a Swiss protected building. Switzerland being a neutral country, even the Germans had to respect that. So 3,000 Hungarians, Jews, were squeezed into that place. My uncle, with his carpentry skill, created a little platform where one, maybe a foot wide, where I could lie, and underneath that platform lay my mother. Immediately to the left, immediately to the right, other bodies were lying. It was so tight in there. You can visit the place now. It is open. I went back about 2 or 3 years ago. It is there as a memorial in Budapest to this place. My memory there, of course, once again, permanent hunger. Mummy, I'm hungry. One food a day, ladled from a great big cauldron to pots, which is what we had to eat. And indeed, there were 3 toilets, and I remember a queue of people queuing to go one of those toilets. I howled once, which is why I remember, Mum, I've got to go to the toilet, got to go to the toilet. She dragged me to the front of the queue and said to the first chap in the queue, look, my son here, he is 6.5 years old, can you let him in first? I don't know how long he'll be in queue is. He said, okay, I give him 1 minute. So I was shoved in there, and 1 minute later, I was yanked out again. I remember, could I produce anything? Of course not. Thankfully, I don't remember what happened thereafter. Now, we are now getting to the autumn-winter 1944, and things became even more difficult, as my uncle had explained. I'm now going to take a 5-minute departure from me, just to remind you of a couple of people who were important in Hungary at the time. If I could take the next picture, please, and the one after this. This is Raoul Wallenberg. If you don't know the name, he was worth looking up. He was a Swedish diplomat who used Sweden's neutrality in the war in issuing something like 30,000 safety documents protecting Hungarian Jews, saying that these people are under the protection of the Swedish government. He was very well known in Hungary, and he did indeed save a lot of Hungarians with these documents. We didn't have one of those. Now, when the Russians came in, he rushed straight to the Russian commandants and said, I'm Raoul Wallenberg, I'm an important person. The Americans know me, everybody knows me, the British know me. Try to help me to save any more Hungarians that are still around here. And the Russians put 2 and 2 together, made 5 and said, oh yes, he must be a spy. Raoul Wallenberg was indeed picked up, taken to the gulags and disappeared as a suspected spy, and he is believed to have died somewhere in the 1960s. There is a statue to memorize him in central London, I think it's somewhere near Portman Square. The next picture is Josef Mengele. He was the doctor of death. And Josef Mengele was a doctor in Auschwitz creating horrific experiments on Jews in the name of science. Especially he worked with twins, and many of the Hungarian inmates in Auschwitz died under his treatment there. He escaped to South America after the war and died in obscurity. Finally, the most important of the 3 that I'd like to very briefly to talk to you about, thank you, is Adolf Eichmann. If you don't know the name, well worth Googling if you have got a moment. He was a very able German diplomat who, what he did, he was sent to Hungary to send as many Hungarian Jews that are left to Auschwitz, and he organized, with the help of the ultra-Nazi, ultra-right-wing Hungarian government party, mostly the youths, to send in wagons and trains many tens of thousands towards Auschwitz. He was caught in after the war, but he went initially to South America, but Jewish secret agents found him, brought him back to Israel, put on trial, and executed in 1964, I believe. Now back to me. My uncle turned up and said, this glass house is not safe anymore. You've got to get out of here, because he was told that the Germans will stop respecting the neutrality of this place and get out of here. And indeed, we crossed the river Danube to a little bungalow where we had some 15 of us. This time under Russian occupation now, because Hungary was, Budapest rather, was part of the Russian army territory by then. And if you ever go to Budapest, you should visit a little memorial by the banks of the Danube. Booths of Hungarian Jews, this time in metal, who were lined up from the glass house and shot into the Danube in November, December 1944. But we were thankfully out by then. That is a little memorial on the banks which can be visited now. Now we are under Russian occupation in Hungary, in Budapest rather, and I, as a 7-year-old boy, had nothing but pleasant memories of the Russian occupation forces. They spoiled me rotten, asked me what my favorite food was. I suppose it is because I reminded many of those soldiers of the people and friends and maybe children they have at home. My mother from there went across Budapest to the Pest side, where my grandparents was to see how they are getting on with all the bombings. And I was absolutely petrified on my own, just for once, without my mother for a day. I just lost myself without her presence nearby. I still remember that. And what is more, in the garden next to the bungalow, an anti-aircraft unit was put up, guns, parallel guns, towards the sky, and when that went off together, the bang was absolutely ear-shattering. So I was howling again, putting my hands in my ear until my mother put some cotton wool into my ears and tied it up with a piece of scarf. Wonderful hero, I must have looked. Now, one memory there is that of Domino. Domino was a Ukrainian soldier, somebody from a 15 of us spoke some Ukrainian, and we called him Domino because I taught him how to play domino. Whenever he had time, I played dominoes with him. The next date I remember, ladies and gentlemen, is February the 13th, 1945. The German army stuck in Buda Castle, which was on the hill overlooking the Danube, and decided as a final gesture to break out from there and pour down the slope towards the surrounding area, including where our bungalow was. Bang, bang, bang noises, problems. Front door crashes open in the snow, and a 17-year-old German soldier comes in, rushes in. We were lined up against the wall. My mother, who speaks German, immediately said to him, "Get out of here, there are only women and children here, out, out, out. You will have been seen." And indeed, we knew, even I knew, that Domino was in the house opposite, on the first floor with a gun pointing down. This chap, and this is the second face I shall never forget. He looks at me, a little 17-year-old, 18-year-old spotty youth. Is he laughing? I thought he was laughing. He was not laughing, he was crying. He stepped outside the front door, ba-bum, and Domino was gone, and he fell on the pavement. And as a 6-year-old, what I remember is a pair of boots where he fell and left in the snow for some days because it was too dangerous to go out. Domino came in 2 or 3 days later. Ha ha, he said, "You were friends, I knew you were going to not let him stay in there. I'm glad you sent him out." Here is the second face I will not forget. At 17, he probably didn't even know who Hitler was, but he had a mother that I had who would never to know and never did know what happened to her 17-year-old. Now, it became peaceful in Hungary, went down to the Danube bank, trying to get back to the Budapest side to see what happened to our apartment. And if you take the next picture, please, if I may. This is what happened to the bridges. The Germans blew them all up, and the next picture as well, please, to try to stop the Russian advance. So we were on the Danube bank near Margaret Island, trying to cross, and there were enterprising young chaps in boats, and my mother hired one of them for £2 worth of flour to row us across. Now, this is now March 1945, swollen Danube, still ice cold, swilling and billowing away. But he started to row, and of course rowing backwards. I was facing him, my mother behind, rowing past under the ruins of Margaret Bridge, which took him the island of Margaret. And on the island, the Russian soldier, waving, shouting, pointing, he wants to go back to Buda. My mother shouted, row on. And here is the third face that I remember, is the face of this poor chap, sweat pouring from his face, just about managing to avoid one of the ruined bits of Margaret Island, and reached the Pesh side, where of course eventually we found that our flat was bombed down, and we had to stay with my aunt. My uncle, who was our guardian angel, unfortunately died in the bombings. He was a baker's assistant, and he was killed, and the kiln he was cleaning got bombed and ruined. Now, as a parting shot of my talk, I would like to leap forward to 1957. I am now 18-year-old. I bypassed the socialist communist area of Hungary. But there is the Hungarian Revolution in 1956, and I was able to escape Hungary with the help of my mother, and I had a rudimentary knowledge of English, came to England. And after 2 days on train and boat with 500 other Hungarian refugees, trying to come to England and arriving finally on the second day, having not eaten, and me having been in the German refugee camps, in Austria rather, for some 3 weeks. We arrived at Stafford Station at 2 o'clock in the morning, getting off the train, neither dead nor alive, and there were 500, 600 women crowding the platform, waiting, trying to help us. And here is the last picture that I would like you to remember, is a smiling woman coming to say, in the first English words that I had heard, "Do you want coffee, love?" And she showed me to a place where I could see. I leave you with this image, and really a little bit of thinking what happened 50, 60 years later with a refugee situation and boat people here, how life has changed. Ladies and gentlemen, Worshipful Mayor, thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sved. As the years advance and we grow further distance in time from the Holocaust, it's more important than ever that we hear testimonies of people like yourselves who were there firsthand, so that we never forget what happened. I now invite Rabbi Hyman to recite the memorial prayer.
A memorial prayer for the victims of the Holocaust and for those who perished in other genocides, first in English and then in Hebrew. God, who is full of compassion, may grant perfect rest beneath the wings of the divine presence to the 6 million Jewish people, men, women and children, and all who were ruthlessly murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators, and to those who have perished in other genocides. We beg you, Lord of compassion, shelter them forevermore. May they rest in peace, and let us say Amen. Now in the Hebrew. El Rachamim Shulchan Gamrumim Amitzim Nochonuno Tachas Yantefe Ashkino B'malot Kedoshim Utovim Zohar Orokia Mathirim Es Nishmos Rivavas Alpe Israel Anoshim Utav שנהרגו ושנשחטו, שנחנכו ונשרפו, ושנקברו חיים על קידוש השם בידי המרצחים הגרמנים ואויביהם, והנהרגים מכל העמים. יחתירים בסיס ונפול עולמים, בצורה חיים את נשמוסם, אדונו נחלוסם, וגן עדן תהי מנוחסם, ינוחו בשלום על משכבם ונאמר אמן.
Melda Condos will now perform for us. Thank you, Melda, that was beautiful. I'm now pleased to welcome students from the Eastwood Academy to share and work around their study of the Holocaust.
We are Jake, Eva, Sharad, Elizabeth and Alex. We are in Year 9 at Eastwood Academy and at the start of this year we studied the Holocaust. Our focus wasn't just on the events and the horrors, but why it happened. Who enabled these events besides Hitler, SS and the Nazi Party? We looked at ordinary citizens, collaborating governments and bystanders. However, what we're focusing on today is another important group we looked at, the resistors and rescuers. We were visited by a second-generation survivor who spoke to our year group. Without people in England willing to help her parents, she would not have been able to share her story with us.
people out there willing and ready to help all those affected by the Holocaust. A lot of these people are being forgotten and overlooked, which is why we have chosen to learn more about who they were, what they did to stand up against the Nazis, and why it is crucial that we know about them. We must be aware that even in the darkest and most hopeless of times, there will still be brave people ready to risk their lives for the sake of humanity. We can all learn a lot from these people, and they set examples we can all live by. Helping others in their time of need, marks of kindness have enormous effects.
One type of rescuer we studied were the armies who liberated the camps. The camps were liberated by three main countries, America, Britain and Russia. The most well-known camp which was liberated was Auschwitz, which was liberated on January 27, 1945 by the Soviet Red Army. The Nazis tried to get rid of the evidence by dismantling the gas chambers when the Soviets arrived, but the damage was still done. They couldn't hide that. The liberators found a warehouse full of belongings and 7,000 surviving Jewish people. What many of these soldiers found was horrifying and must have surely had a lasting impact on them. Their instinct was to feed these people who were so obviously starving. This could have made the victims very ill, having been starved for so long. So they were forbidden from doing so. Resisting the temptation to help in this way must have been so difficult, as was often keeping them in the camps until suitable transport, accommodation and hospitals were found.
Rescuers, a truly remarkable group of rescuers. Many of these people risked their lives making even the smallest acts of kindness to often total strangers. The Kinder Transport was set up to rescue children from Germany and Austria. English families agreed to give them a home for the duration of the war at their own expense, and unsure at this point how long it would be. These people made sacrifices for sure. However, what is truly remarkable are those living in Nazi-occupied territory but still helping those being persecuted. Some examples we have studied. Dervis Korka, a Muslim living in Bosnia, hid a young Jewish woman, pretending that she was their nanny, despite a Nazi officer living in their home at the same time. During the war in Kosovo, much later, his family were given refuge in Israel as a thank you for their kindness to Jews. Miep Greaves, famously protected the Frank family in Amsterdam, even trying to bribe German officials after their capture. Oskar Schindler, first motivated by protecting his workforce and profits, eventually rescued Jews from ghettos at cost to himself. He said a thinking man who had overcome his inner cowardice simply had to help. There was no other choice. Corrie ten Boom, a Christian family built a hiding place in the bedroom for Jews. They were raided by the Nazis, and although the 6 hiding Jews weren't found, the family was sent to a camp. Only Corrie survived.
Some of these rescuers murdered were fated to do so by their own religions, Muslims and Christians, knowing that the murder of anyone was wrong. While some were motivated by money, Schindler continued to help even when it was no longer financially significant. Some even began supporting the Nazis and other fascist organisations, and later changed opinions. Whatever these motivations, these people helped others at great risk to themselves.
I would like to begin by saying a big thank you for your presence here today. It is imperative that events like this continue to happen. Each and every one of you listening to me speak right now have contributed your time and your effort into educating or being educated about these events in recent history. By listening to all of us today, you are helping to share this story and ensuring that we take another step forward towards a future where this can never happen again. Every one of us has a story, and every story has a story, and those stories intertwine. Chances are, if you're sitting here today, the Holocaust has personally impacted your life somehow, whether that be through your own experiences, those of loved ones, or modern-day politics. The past will affect the present, and it is important to understand that so that we can have a positive impact on our future. Of those more closely affected, we can help by standing in solidarity and acknowledging and validating their experiences. We need to let the victims know that they are not alone, and as a society, it is our job to support, to uplift, and to listen. As for the perpetrators, it is important that everyone is aware of the part which they played and that their actions have real consequences which cannot be swept under the rug. Unfortunately, the Holocaust is not the only genocide in human history, and across the world, many similar tragedies are to be our teachers, our historians, and our politicians. They should be equipped to talk about these topics and understand that history affects them and the people around them. It lets them know that you must show compassion and tolerance, and it shows them that this is how discrimination and hatred grow. If we can continue to teach, discuss, and make events like this happen, we can shape a future which promotes an environment of kindness and safety which we all deserve. Thank you for listening, and never forget.
Thank you for that fascinating presentation about the school's study of the Holocaust. Our Youth Mayor, Thomas Bell, and Deputy Youth Mayor, Edward Melville, will now each read a poem.
Today, the ghetto knows a different fear. Close in its grip, death wields an icy scythe. An evil sickness spreads a terror in its wake. Victims of its shadow weep and writhe. Today, a father's heartbeat tells his fright, and mothers bend their heads into their hands. Now children choke and die with typhus here. A bitter tax is taken from their bands. My heart still beats inside my breast, while friends depart for other worlds. Perhaps it's better, who could say? And watching this to die stay. No, no, my God, we want to live, not watch our numbers melt away. We want to have a better world. We want to work, we must not die.
I'll be reading Exodus by Lotte Kramer. Lotte Kramer, the author, was born in 1923 in Mainz, Germany, into a Jewish family. At the age of 16 in 1939, she escaped from the horrors of the Nazi regime through the Kinder Transport, a rescue effort that brought Jewish children to safety in England. Leaving her parents and home behind, Lotte began a new life in an unfamiliar country, where she eventually became a poet, reflecting on her experiences of displacement, survival, and memory. Her works often explore the themes of loss, resilience, and the enduring impact of the Holocaust, offering a poignant voice for those who endured unimaginable suffering. Though she lost much, her poetry serves as a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the importance of remembering history. This is a poem Kramer wrote in 1989 called Exodus, a poem part of her collection Turning the Key, which reflects on her experiences as a Holocaust survivor and themes of loss, memory, and survival. Exodus by Lotte Kramer. For all mothers in anguish pushing out their babies in a small basket, to let the river cradle them in kind hands, find and nurture them, providing safety in a hostile world, our constant gratitude. As in this last century, the crowded trains taking us away from home became our baby baskets, rattling to foreign parts, our exodus from death.
Thank you both. As these formal proceedings draw to a close, Southend Boys and Girls Choirs will now perform 5 short pieces of music.
Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, we have been touched by today's speaker, sharing his story and experiences with us. And I wish to formally thank Mr Paul Sved for being with us today. We hold this annual commemoration in the highest esteem, and with it our shared understanding of the horrors of the Holocaust and other genocides. The theme of this year's Holocaust Memorial Day, for a better future, reminds us that we have the power and the duty to shape the world which we wish to leave behind. A better future is not something that will come on its own. It requires action, courage and determination. It requires all of us to stand up against discrimination in all its forms, whether it be anti-Semitism, racism, xenophobia or any other form of hatred. There are no excuses for extremist behaviour to dehumanise others, and we hope that we can be a leading community to ensure we understand and learn from these horrors. As a community, we must work together to ensure that the future we build is one where justice, kindness and empathy are the cornerstones of our society. We must speak out when we see injustice, educate ourselves and others, and support those who are marginalised. Thanks for the preparation and delivery of today goes to Rabbi Hyman and Rabbi Elf, and to my chaplain, Reverend Frank Smith. I also thank other councillors who are members of the Holocaust Memorial Day Working Party for their support. I think today's musical contributions have been exceptional, and I extend my grateful thanks to Melba Kondos and also Roger Humphrey and the Southend Boys and Girls Choirs. I would like to thank the students from Eastwood Academy for their presentation and the poetry readings by the Youth Mayor and Deputy Youth Mayor. Rosemary Pennington must be mentioned for her continued drive to develop new speakers for this event and the associated activity. Other council officers include Sharon Wheeler for her technical support, Alex Norman for filming the service, and Tony Mayer for producing the content for the film, and lastly, Robert Harris. Tomorrow there will be a tree planting ceremony which will take place at 12 p.m. at South Church Park at the boundary with Shaftesbury Avenue. It will be great to see as many of you as possible there. Finally, I invite you all to join me for refreshments in Committee Room 4. This will also give you an opportunity to view the exhibition